things
Well,
have
then
been
I would
taken out of
suggest, and
context.
I'm sorry to be, if it seems that we're attacking you, but I would suggest that if you are
It's why you
standing
invited
for the
me on,
same
surely.
party, it's not why I invited you on. We invited to hear what you had to say, not to attack you.
Really? Because I've just finished watching this interview, and that appears to be exactly why you had him on. This train wreck of an interview that we're about to watch is from Good Morning Britain, and perhaps Ethan Ralph needs to be having words with them for stealing his format. I had to double check that I hadn't accidentally stumbled into an internet blood sport stream. These interviewers apparently have such a severe case of Sargon derangement syndrome that they can't manage to even maintain basic levels of professionalism towards their guest. It's amazing that he manages to maintain his composure throughout as they continuously cut him off and shout over the top of him. This is certainly not the behaviour I expect to see from the presenters of a well-known breakfast show interview. And looking at the feedback on both the video and on their Twitter account, it is not the behaviour that anyone else expected to see either.
I haven't seen the particular video.
Well, I just told you.
So, already we're off to a messy start. We're only a few moments into the clip and they're already shouting over the top of him, for daring to say that he hasn't even seen the video that they've brought him on to berate him over. Already they're cutting him off to say they've just told him, as if I would even trust them with their obvious bias to have given the full quote in its context. And now they demand an answer for something that he hasn't even watched himself. We're only a couple seconds in and I can already tell that this is going to test my patience.
No, I obviously knew something like this was going to come up, so I looked at the other candidates. I mean, Lord Adonis tweeted something, a cartoon, which he then apologised for because it was deemed to be racist. It was something about Sajid Javid.
But he is not a moral equivalency.
He is a lawmaker.
Use the N-word.
He is a
racist jokes
lawmaker.
are funny. That's not a moral equivalence.
Lord Adonis is a lawmaker. A lawmaker. He sits in the House of Lords.
Okay, so two wrongs make a right, do they?
No.
Well, that is sort of your argument, isn't it?
But
do you feel
also,
comfortable standing in the same party in the same election?
Okay, so from what little he's managed to get out so far, before he was rudely interrupted, it appears that although he hasn't seen the specific quotes that you've dug up, he was warned that you would dig up some old out-of-context tweet or video that you'd taken offence to. And whether or not you think it's relevant, he is pointing out that Carl, or Sargon as most of us know him, is by far not the only politician to have ever caused offence, but, as expected, they're uninterested in applying the same rules to everyone, and cut off his attempts before he's able to make his point. Fortunately, you've just made his point for him, that you are in fact not interested in condemning others who have done similar. You're interested only in smearing Sargon. And while yes, technically she is correct that two wrongs don't make a right, that doesn't excuse a blatant double standard. You're either okay with it, or you're against it when everyone does it.
Question, do you feel comfortable?
Let me finish the point you asked me
Your
first.
whatabouting.
How exactly is drolling over the top of someone's point, "You're whatabouting," helpful to the conversation? It's just interrupting him for no reason other than to interrupt him, and adds absolutely nothing to the discussion. It simply comes across as childish. But now that I think about it, that's about in line with the rest of the tone of this interview.
So, also, I mean, I think, obviously, I've heard some of the comments that have been made in the green room.
I genuinely feel quite sorry for him at this point. He's been interrupted so many times that now, when he is allowed a few moments to speak, he can't remember what he was talking about. And honestly, given the behaviour of the hosts, I'm starting to believe that that's exactly what they were hoping for. It's certainly clear that this interview is not done in good faith.
He mentions Frankie Boyle. I find Frankie Boyle particularly distasteful.
But
he has been given his own show on BBC Two. He is funded by the taxpayer, the licensed taxpayer.
This is the most wild whatabouter I've ever heard.
Carl Benjamin has said that he is an entertainer. So he did those things in the role as an entertainer.
Okay.
Well, somehow he did manage to squeeze out his point, despite the giant man-child of a host shrieking over the top of him, which of course was promptly ignored and dismissed again. But he brings up how we have another professional entertainer, and how, rather than smearing that entertainer over every headline, we've actually given them their own television show on licensed payer-funded television. Again, making a good point that it seems not to be the language they're offended by, as much as the person himself.
So let
me ask you this, he's now got a new role. I think if he'd said, I said some offensive things and I'm sorry about it.
No, he doesn't have to be sorry because you took offence. You don't have to personally like him, you don't have to personally vote for him, but he doesn't owe you anything. Not that you would accept an apology anyway.
That would be one thing. We may not get past the N-word, but it would be one thing.
And there it is, the proof that apologizing to you would make no difference. Even if you got the apology that apparently you want so badly, you would still continue to smear him. This is exactly why he will not apologize to you.
What he's actually said is, I find racist jokes funny.
So his sense of humor differs from yours.
And the reason racist jokes aren't funny is because they demean people.
So do many other types of jokes, you idiot. Has this guy seriously never heard a joke before? There are literally hundreds of jokes about an Englishman, Irishman and Scotsman, in which one of them is always the butt of the joke. Go and see any male comedian, and his wife will be the subject of at least a few of his jokes. Go and see any female comedian, and I guarantee you she'll make fun of men all night. And I'm certain this guy hasn't been under a rock for his entire life and already knows this. So what he actually means when he says it demeans people is it demeans the wrong people. So what he's telling us, whether he understands it or not, is that some demographics should not be treated like the others, that they are too fragile to be joked about and he must protect them from it.
Right? They absolutely demean people and change the outcomes of lives.
What? The only way that a joke is going to change the outcome of someone's life is if they're arrested for telling it. Like Count Dankula, for instance.
Right? This isn't what we do. We believe that all of us are born equal.
Right.
So I'm asking you, given that he said making jokes about people of colour is fine and funny, should he be sacked?
No, he shouldn't. Next question.
But as I said,
should he be sacked?
Lord Adonis is
You're
a candidate.
doing a two wrongs make a right.
Because,
It's a
no,
simple
I'm not.
question. It's your
but you
party.
see,
Poor guy, he's still trying to make his original point, and they're still talking over him.
you haven't got
Do you,
someone...
or even if you don't feel
Look,
in a
my
position
wife
to say,
is from the
sorry,
Caribbean, so I do find
question.
racist jokes
We're
particularly
not
offensive.
accusing you of being
Okay,
racist.
so why then do you
But-
feel comfortable standing in the same election for the same party for somebody
Because
you make?
he was an entertainer. Entertainers always push the boundaries in humour and things like that.
And now he
It's-
wants to be involved in making policy decisions for all people of all stripes, and he is not disassociating himself with his comments and belief that using the N-word is funny, that is inconsistent with
Right.
being a politician for all people of all stripes.
Right.
And I'm asking you, should he be sacked?
Finally, we have some actual honesty. Your problem isn't that he made a joke. It isn't that entertainers make jokes. It isn't with other politicians that have said similar things. It's that someone's standing for a political position that you believe they've got no business standing for. He's not a born and bred politician. He's just an average guy with a past who doesn't care what you say about him. And you think that if you just shout loud enough at him and his colleagues, that he will be forced to stand down and that some career politician will take his place, preferably one with the right opinions. And you absolutely hate the fact that Sargon and UKIP as a whole are not backing down.
There are two separate issues here. You mentioned a video. He didn't use the N-word in that. That was something else where he was goading white supremacists on some forum or something like that. He was actually mocking them in that instance.
So look, we have to
you've
take
joined the two
Lawrence,
together.
Lawrence,
that-
just
that are
one second.
different.
We have to take a wider point here, don't we?
Yes.
Well, isn't that funny? When he makes a point that in the context of him using that specific word, he was actually insulting white supremacists, suddenly she loses interest in the topic and doesn't want to talk about it anymore. She's clearly not interested in the truth. She's only interested in crafting a nice, juicy narrative.
You know, you mentioned that you don't find racist jokes funny yourself. The problem with UKIP is that people like this, who do cause offence to a lot of people, are attracted to the party. So while you still have people standing for elections, making comments like this, it's going to be a problem for people like you who don't find racist jokes funny.
Actually, the only problems I see this guy having is from people like you who have managed to get offended by some 4-year-old video. Yes, he says he's not a fan of racist humour, but he respects that other people have the right to tell those jokes or to enjoy that kind of dark humour. And he knows that if it does offend him, he can just choose not to watch it.
But I believe in freedom of speech. And Carl Benjamin is an advocate for freedom of speech. I mean, that's one of the reasons that he joined the party, because there are many YouTubers and bloggers who find that Article 13, which has recently come from the European Union, will curtail their rights to run their YouTube channels and various other things like that.
So freedom of speech allows a person running for the European Parliament to stand by a comment, the basis of which is that people of colour are lesser.
Okay, so 2 points here. First of all, Sargon has never said that people of colour are lesser people. That is just an outright fabrication. And second, yes, freedom of speech does allow an MEP to stand by their previous comments. It allows anyone to stand by their comments, even if you personally don't like those comments.
Humans, right? That's what it means.
I don't know exactly what he said.
We've told you.
What is the point then?
You mentioned the N-word, but as I said, that was where he was goading white supremacists.
Doesn't this show that UKIP either doesn't vet its candidates?
He was mocking
Can I say
them.
something?
Now the poor guy's getting treated like he's the one that's interrupting.
It either shows that UKIP doesn't vet its candidates properly, which for a long-established political party is a major failure, or you knew exactly what this guy stood for, and he's on the record going back 3 or 4 years and making these comments, and you don't care, and you put him up anyway. I think that's a disgrace, and it's not just racism, it's homophobia and all the other things that people think are a legitimate target for ridicule and hate.
I'm sorry, mate. If I necromance one of your colleagues' 4-year-old comments, will you be able to tell me the full context off the top of your head? I doubt it. UKIP and Sargon believe in free speech, and while his colleagues may not personally like some of his previous comments, they believe that he had the right to say them. How is that difficult for you to understand? And policies such as Article 13, which start to eat into those rights, have caused some of these big YouTubers to offer up their platforms to help a party that will help them defend their free speech. Platforms which UKIP would previously have struggled to reach. And while the two might not be aligned on absolutely everything, they do have a common goal here.
And that's the big difference in between being a liberal, where you believe that everyone is equal and should not be mocked, should not be ridiculed, should not be run down.
I just thought these days we all believed that everyone was equal. I just thought that was taken as read in the modern world.
Absolutely.
Right.
But not by some of your candidates.
Well, I always thought it was everyone being equal under the law. As individuals, there are many things that make us unequal. And that's okay. We all have our strengths or weaknesses that help us or hinder us in different areas. But even if it is absolute equality that this fella is talking about, that's not what he's asking for. If it is indeed equality that he wants, then why is he asking for some groups to have special no-joke status? If everyone is, as he says, completely equal in every way, then why are some people, in his eyes, too precious to be the butt of a joke?
Well, as I say, I haven't seen the comments he's made. I know that a number of things have been taken out of context.
And I'm sorry to be, if it seems that we're attacking you, but I would suggest that if you are standing for the same party, it's not why I invited you on. We invited to hear what you had to say, not to attack you. But you're standing for the same party in the same election. Why would you not feel it was important to find out exactly what he said?
Well, that wasn't my responsibility.
To talk about your party.
I was selected to be a candidate. I was not involved in the
How about this?
process.
Just in terms of pure self-interest. UKIP has a reputation amongst some people for being a party that has racist views. There's belief amongst some people that that is the case. That's borne out by evidence and data.
Once again, he's interrupted halfway through a sentence. And what on earth is he talking about, this evidence and data of people believing that UKIP is racist? Evidence and data which, of course, he doesn't bother to show us. And let's be honest, probably consists mostly of headlines from other left-leaning journalists.
So don't you think, oh, hang on, why don't we try and disassociate our party from the word?
I find that particularly offensive. My wife is from the Caribbean. My children are mixed race. I am not a racist in any way, shape or form.
You're not a racist. I didn't say that.
And nor do I believe UKIP to be. I've been in UKIP for 20 years.
There is an association amongst...
Oh, I didn't say you were a racist. I just said that you were guilty by association. You've been sat here for the last God knows how long, telling this guy that he's a member of a racist party, all while not letting him get a single word in, and then you're surprised that he thinks that you're labelling him a racist.
All parties have people who make inappropriate comments. It's happened in the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, Liberal Democrats. Everyone has it.
Okay. But UKIP have a particular problem, don't they?
No, I wouldn't say so.
I mean, he has a point. Isn't Corbyn currently in the middle of an anti-Semitism scandal? And I believe it was Amber Rudd who recently found herself in a lot of hot water because she used the term coloured person instead of person of colour. Politicians are always finding themselves in hot water with the PC crowd, either for being outright against PC culture or for not being PC enough.
Really?
But that's what I was saying. There's just a problem.
I say, Lord
There's a
Adonis
perception issue.
tweeted a cartoon which he then later apologised and removed because he thought it was racist.
Meanwhile,
it was a cartoon
the
in a
biggest
national
issue ought to
newspaper.
be the future of our country rather than some fruitcake candidate that UKIP have put up.
Well, while I think calling someone with opinions you don't agree with a fruitcake is a little unprofessional, he does have a point. Rather than arguing over a 4-year-old video or tweet, they really should be talking about the future of the country and Brexit.
And in this election, if you want Britain to stay in the European Union, voting Liberal Democrat is the clearest way
We've got to go,
express
guys.
Well, this fella hasn't said much in this interview, but from that line, at least I know that the Liberal Democrats' main policy is to attempt to overturn my Democratic vote. At least give him points for his honesty. They mostly just wrap up after this point in the interview, and so, with that, we have finally made it to the end of this headache. Now, whether or not you're a fan of UKIP, or Sargon for that matter, this is one of the most shameful and unprofessional interviews that I have ever had the misfortune of watching. This is not how we have a civilized conversation with one another, and the only person who managed to behave himself with any class in this situation was the fella from UKIP. This man must have the patience of a saint. Anyway, I am sorry to have subjected you to this, but let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you soon.